Okay, Amanda, thank you for joining us today to talk all things sustainability, plastic pollution, and hopefully educate our audience, listeners, watchers. So to just go straight into it, plastic packaging, obviously just off camera, and we were talking about people's decisions here, the choices that they make, having more conscious choices to recycle or have zero waste with plastic that we have. So first question up for you. Can you tell those who might not know, who are listening, what the actual effects and contribution to plastic pollution that there is at the moment, how it contributes to the landfills and our oceans and what's going to there?
So plastic pollution is a multi-dimensional problem, but it is a problem that we all have. And it's not something we're going to get away from until we stop producing the amount of plastic that we're actually currently producing. Plastic is found in pretty much every industry in the world. It's a very, very popular material. It's a very durable, waterproof. It's a very good material, especially when it comes to things like hospitals, our needs for medical equipment. Plastic has a very important role in society. However, every piece of plastic that has ever been made still exists today. And the problem with this is that there is no current solution for stemming the flow of plastic being made, and there's no current solution for cleaning up all the plastic in its varying degrees of decay that exists since the 1950s, since it was created. Now, plastic pollution is often a result of single-use plastics, which is something that we, on a consumer level, have a very big part to play in. And single-use plastics are items that are only used once and then often thrown away. And the recycling rate for plastic in the UAE, let alone anywhere else in the world, is 8% or 2. It's not a very high number. So what we need to do is we need to make sure that people are aware of the fact that plastic doesn't go anywhere, even when it ends up in the bin. There is no away. So when it travels to a waste refuge centre, often can end up being diverted and end up in the sea. And both of these locations are really hazardous because they have great impact on the environment and the ecology and the biodiversity. Obviously, all of our wonderful native animals, our flora, fauna, and marine life. And I think once we know what the plastic does to our earth, it's really hard for me in particular to come back from that and say, yes, I'm going to continue fighting it. And what we need to help everybody understand is there is always a solution. There's always an alternative, and we need to be the ones that say, I'm not going to buy that plastic bottle. I'm going to buy the glass bottle. I'm going to bring my only bottle. I'm going to reuse one I've already got and keep it within the circular economy rather than, purchasing more and causing more waste. Because ultimately, every time we make a purchase decision, we're creating more plastic to be made at the end of the line, in the manufacturing side as well. So if we reduce the demand, we reduce the supply.
Okay, have you thought about ways that people can be reducing that demand and how we could, as a society, go about that? Because one thing that obviously I either see or think of is people's mentalities that I'm just one individual. So what's my contribution going to be when you have millions and millions of others in other countries who don't care, but also don't even have the luxury of making the decision that they're going to choose eco-friendly. So one side you could say is that it's about the ones who can and the ones who do have the chance to make those changes, that we should have the more conscious choice. But in terms of changing the mindsets of people, to say that, okay, just because you're one person, it's that whole video that you see online, like, it's just me, says 8 billion people. And yeah, right. So with that, what tends to be your response or answer to the ones who say, oh, it's just me, how much impact can I actually make?
Well, ultimately, we all have the ability to make that decision. If there are other reasons why we can't make that choice consciously, then there are things we can do in the interim. For example, we were talking off camera about what our parents used to do, especially our mums, keeping hold of all of the plastic items they've ever come across, keeping hold of all the ribbons and bags and things to use again. And the mentality was back then, everything has, a life cycle, a lifespan. And the lifespan of these items weren't, a single use, or weren't in a single use perspective. So they valued, the use that this item had. They were creative in many different ways. So items often got reused and recycled and upcycled in many different landscapes and projects. And I think we need to have that mentality again that says, yes, ultimately we all know plastic bags are bad for the environment because they end up in landfill or in the sea. And we can bring our own reusable bags to help that side of the problem. We can do the same thing with refillable bottles of water. There's lots and lots of stations, especially across Dubai, with Dubai Can, where you can refill your water bottles for free. Even if you go to a coffee shop, bringing your own coffee mug is really a good idea. We're sitting here now and the first thing we do when we get a coffee is they give you a plastic lid. So it's refusing the lid. At the counter and actually people don't need like plastic.
Straws, same thing.
Exactly. So refusal is the first step. Actually not, creating more waste in any way, shape or form. And then it's being, I think, a mindful consumer where if you can choose a sustainable alternative, you should. If you can't choose it, then how can we be creative enough to stop that single-use item becoming part of our household waste? And is that something we can either make from our own natural ingredients, whether it's products that we need, or can we borrow? Can we rent? Can we swap, thrift?
I think out here at the moment, there are actually a lot of places that you can, like the renting of either the different clothes. We were just talking about recap or recycling, but I don't think a lot of people actually know of these choices and aren't educated enough. So I think something here anyway in the UAE, it's definitely a work in progress towards.
I think it is, and I think Dubai is doing, the UAE as a whole and Dubai are doing a really good job of focusing on sort of the 2050 projects and sustainability mindset that's coming in. As a on-the-ground consumer, as a mum, I'd love to see more recycling points available, but I'd also love to understand, the cycle of the recycling and where it goes. And, I guess everybody has that fear, does my bottle actually go to a recycling centre? Well, ultimately, people don't realise that not all plastic can be recycled. So there's a little triangle on the bottom of your bottle or your plastic item, and that will tell you the grade of the PET in which it's made from. And ultimately, that will define whether or not that bottle can be melted and broken down and reused, recreated into something else. So the more awareness that we have, the more information, I think the better chance of having these opportunities to help affect change. And that starts with every single individual person, becoming more aware of actually the power of their purchase choices.
And I think in terms of the education side, again, you were saying to us before about being schools and educating the children. If we kind of go back to what you just said about our parents and that generation before, they grew up with that because plastic bags weren't a thing. We were saying that, they used paper bags, they used things for paper to wrap things in. I remember my dad always telling me about the glass bottles, the milk bottles, maybe even Coca-Cola or the soda bottles. And the shops would actually reward them with, I don't know what, a shilling or a
bringing
back to him is what he said, and they would bring it back. And
milk bottles,
and you do it, and it was a natural thing. And nowadays you don't. And the education side, like that's why you don't know the actual, what you were saying, where does your bottle actually end up? Where is it going? How is it being recycled or thrown away?
Yes.
I think we have such a ignorance to, we can just throw it in the bin and off it goes in the dust. But like dust in man comes, takes it away, and you don't think about it. But when you do start to consciously think, actually, where do all of my plastic wrapping go? Like my bottles, my cling film, my whatever, everything that basically everything, because you have to use it every day,
everywhere.
And telling people, about the 500 years for things to decompose. And I know there's millions of metric tons that go into our oceans, something like 350, I think, metric tons that go into, or that are produced every year, and that's a form of plastic waste. And then there's a whole microplastic problem too, and that ending up in our oceans, which then even end up, I had the chance to have or sit in on an interview with Malcolm Wood, a man named Malcolm Wood, and he was saying that he actually doesn't have his family to eat shrimp. He chooses not to buy shrimp anymore and prawns, because they have actually, I can't remember annoyingly the stat right now, but they have microplastics in, and that also contributes to levels of testosterone in men, and I'm sure even female hormones too, like plastic. We can go down that route of the toxics.
Honestly, the microplastic problem is real, and it's very much, I would say, one of the top problems that we have at the moment. Because microplastics often end up in the ocean, because they're small enough to get there, whether by air, by land, by sea. They are not easily seen, so you can't scoop them out. It's not like we can go and do a beach cleanup, and they will end up either causing problems with our coral. So in terms of coral reproduction, they stop the coral polyps from being able to be released, and we end up obviously losing one of the biggest sources of oxygen, which is our carbon sink of the ocean, if we don't produce enough coral to replace the coral that's being damaged. We also see microplastics becoming a problem in the food chain. As you mentioned, shrimps, lobsters, all of these creatures are bottom feeders. And microplastics don't necessarily sink, but these creatures are feeding on very, very small particles in the ocean anyway, and microplastics very easily pass for them, unfortunately. And ultimately, if bigger fish eat shrimp, then it's not just the shrimp he has to worry about. It's the fish that's eating the shrimp too. So there's a big argument at the moment, obviously, on the health and safety of the fish in our ocean, and we need that ecosystem for a healthy marine biodiversity. We need that system to help ensure that we are still able to use the ocean as a carbon sink, with the amount of carbon dioxide and the increase that our carbon footprint is exponentially taking, unfortunately. But ultimately, the microplastics that are in the ocean are not going to, and they're only going to get worse, because we, for example, not many people know plastic is in our clothing. Every time we wash our clothes, microplastics are released through the grey water. And the grey water comes out to the back of the washing machine, straight into the ocean and through the sewage systems. There's no microplastic filters in the sewage system. So we're facing probably one of the biggest problems of the next generation and their futures, which is the damage we're doing now by over-consuming plastic clothing. It's billions of clothes that are dumped in landfills every year from overconsumption. The current statistics are something like one garbage truck every second, equivalent of. So I would say ultimately what we were talking about the plastic alternatives with the paper wraps, reusable bags, the reusable water bottles, your own coffee cup, Everything we can do to replace plastic in our home is going to be the first start. And that's why it's so important that every single one of us takes a real look around our own home. I would start with kitchen first, because that's probably the likely place single-use plastic prevalent. Kitchens or bathrooms. So ultimately it's cleaning product, all of the things that you probably would just take for granted or wouldn't even think to look for an alternative in. I think now we're getting more savvy when it comes to buying fruit and vegetables in plastic wrap, because we knew that there's an infiltration of the plastic into our food directly, especially if it's in the sun. I hope people are not buying single-use plastic bottles in the same way that, we were 5 years ago, but ultimately that's not the case statistically. But I think if we, in our own home, make that conscious decision, then all you have to do is change one person's mind. If one family changes one person's mind, then that family changes another person's mind. It's the power of trusting, any other authority out there. It's about being able to say, okay, people trust people. So if my friend is doing a plastic clear out and has decided to make her home safer for her children, for her own future, then I can do the same thing too, because there's nothing stopping me. But to say that one person didn't make a difference, I mean, go out and clear out your kitchen and tell me you're not going to make a difference. I stop using single-use plastic in there, because I can guarantee when you actually realise how much is there and how much is going to ultimately end up in the waste bin, it is a waste.